Little known in the United States, but yet a place where 3.5 million people call home. It is a place of natural beauty, scenic beaches. We want to look beyond the beauty, at children cut up in crime, drugs, prostitution, and the great spiritual needs of 3.5 million people. In 1980, 5 families and a single missionary wanted to make a difference. Sent to Recife by Churches of Christ from across the United States, they set about teaching the gospel of Jesus Christ to the thousands they would come in contact with.
It is amazing how much God has blessed this work. I still just can hardly believe it at times when I think about it. Since our very beginning, the team worked well together. We had a lot of people who wanted to hear, people almost literally lined up to hear the gospel of Jesus Christ.
This team of missionaries set about learning the culture of the people they would be working with. Coming from the affluent society of the United States, they were shocked by the families with little children living on the streets of Recife.
That first few weeks was a big shock as we saw poor children actually feeding out of dumpsters in the downtown area. And some of those scenes are still pretty vivid in my mind today. There's a big gap between the haves and the have-nots. Very few haves and a whole lot of have-nots.
80 to 90% of the Brazilians are considered to be poor. 90% of the wealth of this country is within 10% of the population.
There are nearly 4 million people who live in Recife, but most do not live in the high-rise apartment buildings that you see behind me. Most of these people live in poor housing that you see this way. Unfortunately, in some of the very poorest areas of the city, problems such as alcoholism are also the greatest.
Alcoholism is a terrible thing in this country.
The men are unemployed, and then they stay at home all day, and that's very hard on them. And so in order to get rid of their problems or their thoughts about not being productive and so forth, they end up drinking. That we're really at the bottom of the barrel as far as jobs are concerned. So that's why you see so many men around here in the middle of the day with nothing to do. There are just no jobs for these men. A lot of them survive on maybe what their wife makes when they go into town and work as a maid. Here's another group right here on the corner we're coming up on. So it's not uncommon as you drive through neighborhoods to see grown men in the streets or at the bars sitting around the table with a bottle in front of them as they drink their problems away.
One of the major problems we face in Brazil that is intertwined and covered by poverty is the situation of children, young boys, young girls growing up in unstructured situations.
Groups of young men with bottles of glue, drug of choice for those who have no money to buy drugs.
They can just walk into a hardware store and buy glue, put it in a plastic bottle, and walk around with that bottle in their mouth all day long, sniffing those fumes. I remember one time following a young fellow around the block, and I stopped him right on the beach, a very beautiful place, and I went up to him and I asked him why he was sniffing glue, and he said, because it makes me feel good. That was a simple answer. I've talked to other people about this problem in Recife, and they say that it actually makes the kids feel less hunger pains.
From a very early age, children are conditioned to engage in very unhealthy habits.
Young girls prostituting themselves to get money to survive on.
Sometimes the families actually put their girls out on the street in order to earn money so that the family can survive. So you can see it's a very difficult situation for everyone concerned.
You'll see young girls engaging in prostitution.
And it's just incredible how young these girls start in the prostitution. But they're poor. They don't see any future for themselves.
Finding themselves in horrible, abusive situations that they feel like there's no escape from. And financially, in many situations, there's not. And they feel really stuck.
O seu perdão, ele satisfaz. Grande é o amor do nosso Pai.
People often find out very quickly that crime and these other things, drug use, alcohol use, are not the answer. And so they're still looking for the answer even though they're doing those things. And then when we come and preach Jesus Christ with the open heart that they have, they're very receptive to that. And lives are changed and lives are touched. You know, we help people by giving them food at times. We help people by giving them clothing. We've helped build houses before. But the main help that we can offer these people is to give them Jesus Christ. Because when they have Christ in their life and their life is transformed, then here's what happens. They're more honest. They're more hardworking. They don't have those things in their lives like drug abuse and alcohol abuse that ends up costing them the little bit of money that they have. And so really they end up being raised out of poverty just because they've become a Christian. That's a great thing to see. Of course, but besides the eternal and spiritual benefits, we also see this change in their lives as well.